Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Simsport Racing International. Tonight you're in for a real treat as we have the first race of the SSRi Touring Car Series Season number 2. I'm your commentator, Johan Kirinas, and I'm joined in the broadcasting booth by Steve Proudly. For those of you that haven't experienced the joys of TCR racing, the short and long of it as follows. Take some form of family car, in our case the Honda Civic Type R, Hyundai Elantra, Hyundai Veloster, and Audi RS3 LMS. Then you modify it for racing, insert a driver with a severe disregard for personal space, and then cram a track full of these cars until bursting. It sounds like a recipe for chaos, but in reality it's the best recipe for exciting races with close on-track battles for the majority of the time. Tonight we have the pleasure of visiting the infamous Lime Rock Park. Nestled in the hillsides close to Lakeville, Connecticut in the United States, Lime Rock is one of the nation's oldest continuous operating road racing venues. These oldest tracks being Willow Springs International Motorsports Park, established in 1953, Road America, established in 1955, and then Lime Rock, established in 1957. So this small 2.46 kilometer track has a deceptively simplistic layout, but the narrow space available on the track, the tightening radius of turns 1 and 2, and the tricky West Bend chicane all add to a very tough challenge for these drivers. You can be on the lookout for overtakes into turn 1 and possibly the chicane if the drivers are especially brave. The West Bend layout that we're running tonight is a bit different from the standard Grand Prix layout, so expect some unfamiliarity for the drivers in the latter half of the lap. Tonight's format is going to run as follows. So we've got 10 minutes of qualifying and the drivers are currently already on the track. This will determine the order for the first race. We'll then have 20 minutes of racing for race 1. After the results have been tallied, the top 6 drivers will start in a reversed grid. So keep an eye out for the 6th position, as some driver will be offered the opportunity at redemption as they get thrust to the front of the starting grid for race number 2. And then a race 2 with its top 6 inverted grid start will give us 30 minutes of racing action. So Steve, you've been involved with the previous touring car season. Are there any new rules introduced for the second season, and are there any of these drivers that you reckon we should keep an eye out for tonight?
Yeah, good evening, Johan. Great to have you on board, and looking forward to this one. Your last season was awesome. It was the first TCR season we ran, and it's good to see the grid size is growing. Some new names on there. The format last season, because it was our first season and it was a smaller grid, we averaged probably 10-11 cars. We just did a full reverse grid for race 2, and it was just 2 20-minute races. So the second race is 10 minutes longer, and we are only reversing the top 6 because we envisage the bigger field, and obviously with full reverse grids you tend to get a little bit more carnage, shall we say, a few more incidents and accidents, so we thought it was probably wiser just to reverse the top 6 and let everybody else race from their finishing positions of race 1. Regarding names, the leaderboard is telling its story as I expected, to be honest. We were talking off air about Mr. Wilkes, and he's up there in P1 currently, and I expect him to be in that top 3 or 4. Williams, again, last season a great campaigner with Bridson, Nigger, Haley, and Mr. Walker. Now, Mr. Walker is a quick driver, but he's not getting as much sim time as some of the other guys around him, so that's a fantastic position so far for him in P6, and currently sort of around about 4/10 off the pace, doing a cracking job. The guy that I think is maybe out of position at the moment is McGregor, who is in P8 now. Ross McGregor is a pretty quick driver on all platforms. And I'm expecting to see him climb. He normally goes pretty quickly, and he usually learns car and track combos fairly quickly. So yeah, expect to see him climb a little bit more. But it's going to be a good one. It's going to be exciting, and as you've said already, Lime Rock it's a good track, and with that alternate layout that we're using this evening, it might just catch 1 or 2 of them out.
Definitely agree. And as we were chatting, we could see Matters Naga jumping up to the timing towers. So during practice, there was only one instance of a 57.924, I think, that we saw. That was from Brits, and if I remember correctly. So very, very good lap there for Niger, getting him into provisional pole. Britson also looking very solid in that second position, so we'll be keeping an eye out for the last few laps. 8.5 minutes done of qualifying, so if there is going to be a fast lap coming in, you kind of already need to be on track at the moment. It does take a bit of a while to get these cars tires warmed up. I think 2 to 3 laps. It's a very short lap, so it takes a bit more to really get the cars up to speed. But things looking very good for those drivers. At the moment, Blackwell sitting in 7th position. So a fast third sector for him at the moment, but moving up into 6th. So he's going to be happy with that one, getting him into a very comfortable position for the race. Coverdale also doing his utmost best to see if he can get a proper fast lap in. Already fast in the first sector, so that's going to be very good. Very tricky first and second corner, so he's going to come across the line. Is he going to make a jump? So as he goes across that lime rock signage, unfortunately stays right where he is in P12. And now we've got some other drivers coming across the line as well. So Britton and Hack on the outlaps. I think Hack might have just been in time to get his lap done. Amos moving up into 13th place. So maybe not the best position to be in, depending on what your views are, but still good on him for improving that time. And yeah, qualifying is done. So we are going to have our provisional grid up and ready. So sitting out in P1, we've got Matters Niger with that monstrous lap of his, and then Martin Britston, robbed of that provisional pole, but he is going to give it his utmost best into that turn 1. Then we've got Simon Wilkes, P3, Daniel Williams, P4, and then Stephen Haley with P5. Dan Blackwell in 6th position. Aaron Walker is going to take 7th, then Ross McGregor 8th, Lewis Benny 9th, and Chris Hack rounding out the grid in 10th. Then 11th, we've got Wagner, 12th, Coverdale, then 13th, Amos, another Wilkes, so Darren Wilkes in 14th, Stephen Allen in 15th, and Lloyd Rowe in 16th position. So grid is set up, ready to go. We just need a few more drivers to join us on the grid. Things looking good for a race start here at the moment. Also, massive welcome to everyone watching from the YouTube channel. I am keeping an eye on some of the comments flowing in. So yeah, feel free to say hi where you're watching from, who you're supporting. And we're just waiting on race control to give us the lights for the race start. And a few more to join the grid. And things looking nice and solid. You can see there Matthias Niger on the left-hand side of the grid, on that inside line, the coveted inside line. And if he can get his braking in order, that's going to be a very, very solid start for him. So 5 lights out, and we off and racing. Very slow starts for some of the cars there in the background, but Niger getting a very, very good start. I think that might have been a bit of a rough one for Britston. He's finding himself kind of swallowed up by the pack there behind him. And then Walker moving up into 2nd position there on the inside, getting the run. And very, very good start there for Walker. Britston still with Wilkes and Williams battling it out behind him. Further down the grid, it looks a bit safer for the rest of the drivers, so no major incidents. And we are going to go off into turn number 5. Now, turn 5 has a very nasty compression here, so tricky one to keep the car in control. You can see Wilkes there. I think that was Wilkes running a little bit wide. And now into the West Bend chicane, and this is almost a dead stop in these cars, so very tricky to get your pace kind of flowing into the last corner there. But Walker looking very solid between the two cars of Britton and Walker. Although he's pulled off line and is slowed down a fair bit. I think that might have been a bit of a slowdown that he got going through the chicane and accidentally cutting the corner. You're going to be seeing that from a lot of drivers. So that's unfortunately cost him, I think that was 2-3 positions in one go. And we can see Haley moving up into the order right on the front there. Sorry, not Haley, I think that might have been Wilkes. Trying to see that Hanover lost that green and black car getting very out of shape. Yes, that is the number 1 car of Haley. So kind of settling in behind Walker, trying to figure out where he might have been pushing the car a little bit too hard and settling back into position. But Walker still under immense amounts of pressure. He kind of wants to recover from the mistake, but at the moment he just needs to get his head down. There's still 18 minutes left on the racing clock, so lots to be done. And I think we might have had a crash from one of the other drivers, so let's just keep an eye here on Chris Hack. So, massive drift there, gets collected into the wall, and that's in the way of the other cars. You can see how little room you've got. So that's collected number 49 or 48. I think that might have been Wagner. No, sorry. Stephen Allen was collected there, the car number 49. Very unfortunate bystander. They kind of just caught the whole tail end of the incident. Bit of a rough one. We do have fast repairs so the drivers can get back on track, but that is going to be a massive loss for the racing efforts in this first race. Out in front, Niger is just absolutely dominating with a 1.5 second gap after 3 laps of racing. Very, very impressive driving there. Out in 9th, McGregor having a bit of a lonely race there. You can't really see anyone. So you can't really see anyone around him, but I do think he moved past Coverdale in the chicane. So possible slowdown for Coverdale, having to give up the position or a mistake. Not exactly sure. And Walker a bit out of place there on the outside, and Haley is going to slip up the inside, take that position. Now he's got the outside line for corner number 5, squeezes Walker towards the inside for the chicane. This is going to be neck and neck, done on the brakes. Walker hard on the brakes, gets the inside line, and that's some hard fighting there for P5, but Walker off the track there. That's going to hurt your momentum a little bit. So we'll see how Haley is able to manage the draft behind him. So little bit of closing speed, he might be able to pull out at the last second, and yes, he does. So up the inside, is he going to be able to get this done on brakes? And up on the inside, Walker does give Haley the space, and that's a very slow exit there for Walker. So unfortunately, he's going to be under pressure now from Benny behind him. So the number 31 smelling an opportunity here on car number 99. Benny getting a very, very clean exit there. So onto turn number 5, and it's 4 cars right behind one another as they come across the crest in very close succession into the chicane. And I think that might have been Walker almost into the backside of Haley there. He did very well to avoid the collision there, but unfortunately costing him yet a bit more time. Benny now feeling the pressure from Blackwell behind him. So 3 cars down the main straight. Opportunity to pull alongside, and Blackwell tries to make the move, forces Benny out of the slipstream, and Blackwell decides he doesn't really want to be part of this fight. Gets a bit of a wider line through that turn number 2 to get a bit more exit speed, and there you can see Benny now under pressure on the outside, going onto the inside for the right-hander. And yes, that is actually what the corner name is called. So yeah, normally the American tracks don't have corner names, so it's either turn 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5. But we do have a few corner names to play around with here. And just looking there, Blackwell ahead of Benny. So getting a bit of a gap going on Benny, so losing out through that second half of the lap, not his strongest efforts, and he is going to settle into a bit of a groove as he's got some space around him. Meanwhile, the battle in front of him between Walker and Blackwell is starting to heat up, so if there's some kind of odgy-bodgy, he's going to have a bit of an opportunity. So just having a bit of a look at the lap times, previous lap time, there is a 10th in the advantage of Bridson. So Bridson might be catching Nygaard a little bit here in the middle part of the race. So if he can find that pace, he is going to have good opportunity at making a pass. Blackwell moving up into 6th position, hard on the brakes for the chicane, and he's going to get the run there out of the corner. So Walker falling down a position, a bit of a tricky one there as Blackwell is now trying to, it's a bit of weaving all over the place, trying to break the draft. You need to be very careful with how much you do that moving down the straight, but no harm, no foul, as Walker is just sticking behind him, and he is going to be piling on the pressure to see how much he can force a mistake from Blackwell now. It's always the tricky thing if you're sitting behind the car and you're just trying to get the overtake done, and once you get that overtake executed, all of the pressure, Walker taking a very, very trimmed line there for turn number 5. He's lucky that curb didn't really spit him out. But yeah, as you pass your opponent, all of that pressure that you've been piling on top of them comes right back at you. So you need to manage that as well as possible. And Bridson has now caught up with Nygaard out in front. So 8/10 separating the two of them. And Bridson, he is finding some pace on track. His previous lap is actually 3/10 faster than that of Mattis Nygaard. So finding some time somewhere. I'm trying to look at the sector times to see if there is some advantage there, but he is going to be closing down the gap. There you can see, out of turn 5, some very fast exit, and 2/10 just gained down that little mini straight. Of course, losing out a bit of time as they go through the chicane is a bit difficult to follow closely, especially if your opponent has a bit of a mistake in terms of their pacing. But there, 3/10 between the two drivers. This is going to be very difficult for Nygaard as he goes towards the inside to defend, so he's going to force a bit of a wide outside line for Bridson. Bridson is just going to fall in behind him for now, get the nice wide entry into the corner, and Nygaard, having to defend, has now really compromised its exit out of turn 2. And I think something might have happened to Benny, so let's just keep an eye on the number 31. And you can see here, just and loses the rear under braking. It's so difficult with these cars when you kind of transfer the weight onto the driving wheel in the braking zones. You really need to be careful that you don't carry too much speed into these corners. It's so difficult to recover from it because it's not that the rear kind of steps in. It's your front wheels tend to grab a little bit more, and then you're off into a spin like we saw there. Bridson now still sitting behind Nygaard, and he's just having a bit of a look. So he's caught up to his rival. And the problem now is you need to figure out where in the lap do you have the faster time. So we know he's been fast out of turn 5 previously, but is he going to be out of that corner in a rapid fashion each and single time? That's the thing that he's trying to determine now, because he's got 10 minutes to make the overtake. Of course, Nygaard now getting the opportunity as well to see where he has the upper hand, but it's going to be a very, very hard fight all the way to the end. Both of them 5 seconds abreast of the rest of the pack, so they definitely have a bit of an opportunity to fight between them. And then Bridson not really closing down the gap. We don't have mandatory pit stops, so there's no real quirks in the terms of the tyre strategies. You just need to make sure that they last for the majority of the race. Although with touring cars, for 20 minutes, you should be fine. And yeah, Brixton just managing that gap, keeping it to around the 5/10, 6/10 mark. And you can see just Niger pushing that car as hard as possible. You can see the rear stepping out there on the right-hander. And the Audi, of course, being a very capable car, but I think the Hyundai Elantra might have a bit of an advantage when it comes to cornering. Of course, that Audi, very good straight line speed. And we definitely seen Niger utilizing it as much as possible. But now 2/10 between the two of them, with Brixton having a very good run out of the last corner. So we'll see what he's able to do there. Niger goes towards the inside, heavily defending the inside line. He doesn't want to lose that. He's going to force Brixton the hard way around, and Brixton opting to rather just resume a normal racing line. Now as they go out of T2, he's again just managing that 3/10 gap, so a bit closer now. He's probably going to back off a little bit for the chicane. You really don't want to get caught out behind a slower opponent in such a slow speed corner. But this is a battle that's shaping up very nicely as they come across the crest. Cars are almost jumping. I know GT cars. So I know GT cars are able to jump. Behind them, we saw in the timing towers the battle between Williams and Wilks shaping up very nicely as well. Another Audi and Hyundai battle out on track, and that's a very slow exit there for Williams. And Wilks is now just 1/10 behind him down the main straight, and of course Williams goes for that's a very deep inside line. I would think you might want to squeeze your opponent, but that's just going to be Wilks cruising on past Williams, and that's a very, very nicely done job there by Wilks to take P3. Meanwhile, back out in front, Brixton still sitting behind Niger, so he's just keeping it calm at the moment. I'm actually wondering what it looks like from his perspective as we go up over the crest. And as I mentioned previously, I know GT cars are able to actually make a bit of a jump, but I think you're just losing a bit of traction with these touring cars. They're not exactly fast enough to really lift the car as they go up across the hill. So behind all of this, Haley and Blackwell duking it out, and they're actually starting to catch up with Williams as well there. So this battle is going to become a very interesting three-way battle. You can see Blackwell there just having a bit of a peek behind Haley for a possible opportunity, not really finding the overspeed to get the overtake done, and he is going to just stuck in behind Haley. Look at some of the lines that he's taking. Haley, of course, in that Hyundai, that new Hyundai Veloster. So it is sedan versus hatchback, and we'll see what's happening there. So Blackwell, very good exit out of the right-hander, and doesn't have the opportunity to make an overtake into turn 5. And he's fallen behind slightly. I think that might have been a possible lift. He doesn't want to attack Haley into the chicane. It's a very, very tricky one to execute at the best of times. So especially with the car in front of them, it becomes a bit risky to really get something executed there. But now 4/10 between the two of them, and he is just sitting there in the draft. Haley not taking the inside line. Now he is going to just dart towards the inside a little bit before he resumes the racing line. And you can return to the racing line if you're defending, but you definitely don't want to be react. Ooh, and almost onto the back bumper. Blackwell just giving him a possible nudge. Not exactly sure if he would have felt that through the netcode. And just a little bit of a tap to say, hi, I'm still here. It is a touring car race after all, so there is going to be a little bit of contact, a little bit of argy-bargy. But all's fair in love and war as long as they don't take one another out. And Blackwell just poking his nose out, piling on the pressure onto Haley, trying to see if he can get a bit of a mistake from his opponent, but then number 1 car proving very, very solid under the pressure indeed. Brixton, in the meanwhile, just as an update out in front, is now 9/10 behind Niger, so not really finding the speed that we would want. Ooh, and that's a very defensive line from Haley as he goes far towards the inside, gets Blackwell to kind of buy what he's selling, and Blackwell taking a bit of an inside line, losing out a little bit on exit. But now again, he's so consistent with that T2. So Blackwell is so consistent with that T2 exit, and just gets up onto the rear of Haley. So that's one of the possible points on the track where he's really getting a bit of speed on him. But then Haley just mashes it through turn 5 here. You can see Blackwell not as confident as Haley is with that that smaller Hyundai. And that short wheelbase just proving a bit more nimble as they go through the chicane. And now Blackwell 1.5 tenths behind Haley. Unfortunately, not with the exit that you would want. As you can see, the gap opening up a little bit between the two of them. It might have been a bit of a lift from Blackwell. And they are so close together. You can almost see them touching. A bit nerve-wracking going into that first braking zone, but Blackwell now sizing up his opponent, and there you can see that turn 2 exit speed that he just gets right under the rear of Haley yet again. But then the tricky part is now sticking through the left-hander and right-hander and keeping that gap a bit closer. So you can see he's able, Blackwell is able to keep the gap down. We'll see what he does through turn number 5. This is the one where he's a bit weaker, and there the gap opens up a little bit, but this time it's not as far as Haley would like. And up the inside, it's a bit late from Blackwell, but that was a good attempt. Good job on him for actually backing out of the corner a little bit. That would have been closing in on his nose, but just giving Haley a lot more to think about in that latter part of the lap. Meanwhile, in front of them, Wilkes and Williams still duking it out. I think this battle between Haley and Blackwell is giving them a little bit of breathing room. We do have one of the drivers off the track. So unfortunately, that is Darren Wilkes. So we'll see if he's able to recover there. So keeping an eye on him as he goes down the main straight into turn number 1. Heavy on the braking, and ooh, dips the wheel into the grass. And just recovers nicely, no big crash, so he's going to be back on track and racing as hard as possible. So unfortunate mistake, but good recovery. Meanwhile, Blackwell almost up onto the inside of Haley yet again. Haley moving around the track quite a bit, taking a very sweeping line, so making it difficult for Blackwell to really gauge where he can attack. So Haley giving us a bit of a masterclass on how to keep your car as wide as possible. And if we just look at our timing tower, so positions 10, 11 and 12, there's a few cars that are having a bit of a party there, battling it out for position number 10. So Ames in the thick of it, car number 27, and looking at the rear of Wagner. Oh, I'm not exactly sure if my Afrikaans accent is going to do that justice. Don't want to go full Afrikaans on you. Unfortunately, Ames being forced towards the outside, and that is going to keep Wagner in 10th position. So some hard battling going on between them, and I think that is the car of Benny just behind them, number 31. We'll see that in a second. Not really able to make that out, but they have some cars joining in on the fun. So yeah, there you can see the number 31 as the Honda Civic comes across the crest, and now this is going to become a bit of a bigger party than Ames would like at the moment. He's going to feel that pressure from Benny behind him there in the Honda Civic, and it's not something that you want to see if you're battling. Oh, and that is a slowdown there for Wagner. I apologize. It's the time has just absolutely flown by. So finishing the race without us even noticing. A bit of a bad form for me as commentator, but it just shows how much action we do have on track. So our finishers for the race: Niger holding onto the first position, just giving it. Sorry, I think we already have the reverse grid. So this is going to be the starting grid for race number 2. But then in first position, we had Niger. So it's going to be a bit backwards now. But then Bridgestone, unfortunately, not able to overtake him, but he's going to take second position. Wilkes in third, then Williams in fourth. Blackwell in fifth, and then Haley taking that sixth position. So he's going to be starting out in front. Then for the non-reverse grid finishers, in seventh we had Aaron Walker, then Ross McGregor taking eighth, Cloverdale in ninth, Ames in 10th position. So actually getting that overtake done. Then Benny in 11th, also getting overtake right there at the end. Wagner, unfortunately, with the slowdown, losing out 2 positions at the end of the race. And then we've got Rowe 13th, Hack 14th, Wilkes and Allen 15th and 16th. And we are ready for the start of the second race. Lights are already out, and a very, very good start there for Blackwell. Williams falling down. Sorry, not a few drivers there falling down the order. It's a lot happening there right at the start. So unfortunately, the front row, I think that was P1 having a bit of a poor start. I'm not exactly sure now about the name, but so Haley now down to 4th position, losing out 3 positions. That's going to be a gain for both Blackwell. Williams now moving into 1st position, and then Wilkes, Blackwell sitting behind them in P2 and 3, swapping positions there. And then Niger right in the thick of it in 5th position, so he is going to be duking it out as hard as possible. Behind him, McGregor in 6th, then Cloverdale, Benny and Ames. So the rest of the grid looking a bit more standard. But yeah, big losers there on the first lap are going to be Blackwell losing 1 position, and then Haley losing 3 positions. Also missing. So we'll have a bit of a look at Blackwell's start. Oh, and that's out of the right-hander onto the grass, so losing out lots of positions there just by the off-track. Good recovery, though. He was on that track fairly quickly, so kept that down to a minimum. It's so easy to get the entire grid passing you on the first lap like that. Haley gaining back a few positions, so up into 3rd now from the start, and he's under pressure by Niger behind him. This is going to be a hard battle between the two of them. And then further down the field, Cloverdale sitting in 5th. So with Benny right behind him, you can see there 3 cars right behind one another. Benny looking for an opportunity on Cloverdale on the inside. Unfortunately, that door was closed way before he even arrived at the corner, but it's all about piling on that pressure right at the start. There you can see the two front runners very close to one another there, with Williams and Wilkes 4/10 separating them. But then this whole mid-pack as McGregor now looking for an opportunity on Benny. Unfortunately, that was a bit late in the corner. Benny now getting a very, very good exit there. Cloverdale falling down 2 positions. He might lose a 3rd. And then at the front, it is extremely close, with Williams essentially being bump drafted by Wilkes. 2/10 between the two of them, so Wilkes looking for a good opportunity here, possibly going to dive towards the inside, decides better of it, so he's going to keep this battle going into turn number 1. You can see there 4/10 as he drops behind a little bit. Cloverdale dropping down into 8th position, a bit further down the pack, but Wilkes now 4/10 between himself and Williams, and it's not enough of a closing speed to really get a move done into turn number 1. So settling into position a little bit, and then behind them, Haley's actually starting to catch up, although very slow exit there out of turn 2, almost runs Niger off the road. That's going to be side by side into the left-hander, and Niger backs out a little bit, giving Haley a bit more space to work with. Haley just getting as much pace out of the car as he possibly can. He really wants to keep a hold of this position. Now the battle here between Benny and McGregor, and then McGregor and Bridgestone. So McGregor, that's a white Audi, Bridgestone just sitting right behind him. So it's a bit of an unfortunate sandwich there for McGregor. He needs to get past Benny if he wants to keep a hold of this position. Otherwise, Bridgestone is going to be absolutely pressuring him down into turn number 1. So McGregor getting a very good exit out of the last corner. Benny running a bit towards the middle of the track, and out in front, Haley unfortunately losing out there to Niger. So that is that battle done and dusted for the time being, and McGregor getting past Benny. So Benny is not going to let him go that easily, although Britson also wanting in on the party is mightily close there to the rear of Benny. So big battle here in the middle of the pack. Positions 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 as well. So lots of cars to look at here. So 4 minutes of the racing done. So still a bit of a way to go up towards the inside. Benny trying to look for an opportunity, but he's going to take a bit of a different line, and he has lost out on pace. And Britson now on the attack down the main straight, and Benny having to defend where he would have liked to be attacking the car in front of him. A little bit of weaving in the middle of the track. I think that might be frustrating for Britson, but he's going to go up the inside. That's a massive move. Not sure if there was contact, but Benny losing control of the rear of his car, and that is going to be Britson moving up into 6th position. So nice hard battle between the two of them, but Benny's woes are not over yet, as Cloverdale now pressuring him behind, as unfortunately with these cars so close together, one mistake is going to cost you a lot of space. But good recovery there for Benny, as he's opening up the gap a little bit between himself and Cloverdale. Cloverdale, of course, in his own battle with Hack behind him. Hack, of course, having the off in the previous race, but he is definitely back to racing form as he's battling it out for 8th position. Meanwhile, out in front, and Williams is still able to keep Wilkes at bay at the moment. So 2 tenths between the two of them. And I think Wilkes just closing down the gap yet again. So he's found a bit of time, and this battle is now pretty close. He just needs to keep that gap to a minimum as they go through turn 5 into the chicane. And we'll see what both of them are able to get going for the exit. Of course, that last corner onto the main straight, a bit of a non-issue in these cars. So the exit out of this chicane being absolutely critical. And it looks like Wilkes actually got a fairly good exit. You can see the delta going down there between the two drivers. 3.5 tenths separating them and closing fast. So we'll see if Wilkes is able to actually get a move done into turn number 1. He does just jinx a little bit to the inside. He's not going to do anything seriously, but just shoving the nose out a little bit. Ooh, and that's a loss of the rear for Williams. So losing control of the rear of his car, sliding, keeping the car in control yet again, but Wilkes almost closing up the gap entirely and getting past him. So that right-hander curb, very rough on the car's suspension. You can just hear them going through there. So something happened to Coverdale. Ooh, that's a bit of a tricky one into the left-hander, just losing the rear of the car, but it would seem, and going off track. So good on him for avoiding a collision, but unfortunate in the way they came off the track like that. But yeah, out in front, Williams having a nice battle, and the battle for 5th is still raging with Britson behind McGregor. Out in front, Wilkes 2.5 tenths behind Williams as they go through the left-hander. Bit of a different line for Wilkes as he takes a bit of a wider entry into the complex of corners to really get the speed up and going. But unfortunately, Williams able to just gap him a little bit. Now, look at that Audi right behind him. You can see the car of Niger closing down on them. So Wilkes' time is starting to run out. With Niger now 8 tenths behind them. And you can see there, Wilkes just absolutely pressuring Williams. 4 tenths between them through the chicane. That's pretty close to follow through that sequence of corners. And you can see Williams just absolutely gunning it down the main straight. He's starting to see some of the cars that will be lapping in front of him. So he's flashing his lights in preparation. Very wide line there for Williams. Wilkes unfortunately not finding the space to get past, but there is going to be a lot of pressure, and you can see Niger also closing down on them. So we've now got a three-way battle for the lead. 9 minutes into the race, and still 2/3 of this race to go. Williams flashing his lights there for the back markers. He really wants to get through the traffic without too much of an effort, because it might cost him. It's always tricky with these back markers, just in terms of knowing what they are going to do. Of course, they just need to be predictable in the way that they drive on track. It's a bit more damaging if a car just completely pulls offline, but this is a very, very good place for the back marker to pull off. And Wilkes on the attack on the inside line. Is he going to be pulling alongside on the brakes? We'll see Williams on the outside line, unfortunately losing out on the brakes, and that is going to be Wilkes moving up into P1, aided a little bit by the distraction of the back marker, but that is definitely not number 49's fault. So that is Alan a bit further back in the field. Bridson getting the move done on Hack through turn number 2, and he is going to move up a few positions. So that middle of the pack really bunching up yet again. Niger now behind Williams, and those three front runners very, very close together, and through the chicane they go. Williams very close to the rear of Wilkes. Of course, it's easy to say, okay, you've got pace to get past, but maintaining that pace once you're out in front is a different story entirely. So Wilkes taking a very defensive inside line. Williams just sticking behind him as Wilkes resumes the racing line towards the inside. Williams goes. Unfortunately, no opportunity there, and Niger now right on his rear. And it's going to be a tricky one as they just go along the first few corners, and Williams up on the inside of the left-hander. Is he going to have the pace to go around the outside on the right-hander? Unfortunately, falls behind and just switches over the line. Unfortunately, Niger right behind him. Niger trying to catch Williams off guard to get him kind of trapped behind Wilkes as he gets a move done. But unfortunately, that's not really how it's going to work out for him. Williams running on the inside line of the chicane. Niger backing out, unfortunately not really able to utilize on that speed he had running it up from turn number 5. And now Williams going towards the outside of Wilkes. Wilkes taking the defensive inside line. Is he going to be able to finish it on the brakes? Yes, he does. And now Williams coming under pressure here from Niger yet again as they go into the first few corners. Nearing the halfway mark of the race, 12 minutes down, and things are only getting more exciting as these three front runners are duking it out. Meanwhile, at the back of the pack, sorry, not the back of the pack, the middle of the pack, McGregor, Bridson, Benny, Hack, Blackwell, all duking it out within a second of one another. So lots of close racing. Meanwhile, action here out in front, just as close. We're getting a view of that midfield battle now as you just look on your bottom right hand corner. And Bridson actually getting the move done on McGregor. Very, very slow exit there for one of the drivers. And too wide down into the final corner as it's still neck and neck going into that first corner. So trying to just spot the car numbers, but there you can see Hack and Blackwell also swapping positions, and I suspect we might see one of the drivers dropping down a few more positions. That's one of the Broccoli racing cars getting a bit pummeled at the back of the pack. I have been informed that that is Bridson, very much under pressure there between McGregor and Benny. Of course, you're seeing the Honda of Benny there right behind the green Hyundai. Very, very defensive line there for McGregor at the bottom, and unfortunately doesn't work out for him. And that is going to be Bridson moving up ahead of him And now McGregor dropping down another position as Benny pulls alongside him on the main straight. So we'll see how that ends up in turn number 1, side by side. This is going to be on the braking, and McGregor getting pressured a bit more towards the outside. Benny is going to keep a hold of the position, and now McGregor and Hack right next to one another. So Hack, of course, his teammate, as you can see, that those beautiful Audi liveries. So it might be a bit of an advantage of him. He might get a bit of breathing room from Blackwell behind him. We'll see how that works out. Meanwhile, out in front, Wilkes, Williams, and Naga all still in their original positions, just duking it out all the way, and just action all the way around. But Naga is staying a bit calmer at the moment. We know he has a lot of pace in hand. Of course, all of these drivers very capable, and with these TCR cars, the front-wheel drive cars, it is a bit of a different type of car to race. Now we can see here McGregor and Benny duking out. Benny, unfortunately, a bit earlier on the brakes on the inside, but he's able to keep that momentum going. And unfortunately, McGregor not able to maintain that outside line, still side by side into the left-hander. Is he going to be able to slip past? Yes, he does. And now behind him, Hack is just taking the line behind his teammate. Unfortunately, Benny just slips in behind the two of them, and Hack is unfortunately going to slot over to the other side of the field. Bit of contact there between Blackwell and Hack. All of the cars coming through safely, but a bit of a stressful moment there for all involved as they headed into turn number 5, straightening out through the chicane, and unfortunately Benny going off track a little bit. That is going to cost him a bit of time, and you can see there McGregor just opening up a little bit of a gap. Out in front, it's still neck and neck, 3/10 between the two drivers. You can almost just throw a blanket over these cars. Wilkes doing a superb job of absorbing the pressure that's being piled on top of him. Williams just absolutely charging. Back in the field, unfortunately, Benny going off track and losing out on that battle, but Williams not giving an inch, and just following as close as possible there behind Wilkes. 16 minutes done in the race, so still a lot of action left to go, and it's going to be interesting to see what he's able to do. I see a bit of support there for Broccoli Racing in the YouTube chat, so Williams getting the support from some of his fans there. Unfortunately now under pressure there from Niger. 2/10 gap between the two of them out of turn 2, and his mind is a bit focused to the car behind him. Niger just catching a very, very impressive draft, just tucked behind the rear wing, but Wilkes not able to gap the two of them. So very, very hard fighting between the three drivers. Bit of a restricted line there from Williams, so he felt like he was going to go wide. So, almost contact between Niger and Williams there as they go through the chicane. Niger backing out, giving the position back to Williams. But you can see, of course, the gap already opening up between them. Down below, Hack and Blackwell taking a bit of a... McGregor, Blackwell and Hack all duking it out, going through the chicane. So, McGregor... Blackwell, a bit of a sandwich between McGregor and Hack. And out in front, that is Niger and Williams swapping possible positions. A bit of a contact between the two of them, and that is Niger up into second position. And Haley is in on the lead battle as he's now battling Williams for third position. Lots of things happening here, but just look at that gap between the front runners and the middle of the pack. 8 seconds between Haley and Bridson. So that battle in the middle of the pack might have cost them a fair bit of time. But Haley joining the party now as he is right on the rear there of Williams. Williams now just absolutely gunning it, trying to get away from that black and green Veloster. And we know Haley definitely knows how to extract a bit of pace out of the car when the track is clean. We'll see what he's able to do behind him. Almost a three-way battle here between Blackwell, Hack, and McGregor. And a Blackwell out in front, able to get the two teammates behind him. And he must have made that move somewhere when we weren't looking. Moving ahead of Hack, although I think that might be McGregor falling down a few positions. So looking at what happened here on the main straight, and he starts out in front of them. It's a bit of a tricky situation when you've got two teammates behind you taking two different lines. You don't know what you should defend. So very tricky situation down the main straight for Blackwell. And 4 tenths between himself and Hack, so he's gapped them a little bit, but maybe not enough. So everyone is now starting to space out a little bit here with 20 minutes of the race done and dusted. So that was the length of our first race. And Blackwell now yet again under pressure, taking the inside line. Hack trying to get some momentum on the outside line, goes for the switchback, closes down the gap, but unfortunately the door is closed. So some good solid racing here for 6th position. And Blackwell doing very well to absorb the pressure. So we might have something that happened to Stephen Allen. So just looking here, going into turn number 1, very tricky corner, and you'll see there as the corner tightens, just catches him off guard a little bit onto the gravel. He's very fortunate that he wasn't collected by someone out on the track, but we'll see him recovering. Apologies, recovering back onto the track. So Hack yet again very close behind Blackwell. Blackwell definitely isn't able to shake that Audi, but in turn Hack's just not able to close down that gap yet. He might be holding back a little bit, but it is going to be a tricky one. So looking at the times at the moment, and last lap for Masses Niger in P2, 58.50. Simon Wilkes doing a 58.98, so that's a fair bit, almost 5 tenths between the two of them. So he is closing down that gap, recovering from that initial kerfuffle that he had with Williams, and it is going to be one hard battle for the rest of the race for Wilkes to keep a hold of that P1. He's really fought hard for the position. And now Niger just giving it his absolute all. They're starting to run into some of the back markers, so this is going to complicate things a little bit for both of them, of course. Both drivers having to clear the traffic, but it all comes down to who's able to manage that overtake the best. The car in front of them is number 27, Ames. So Ames is going to pull onto the right-hand side of the track. And they are all going to get past him. That is Williams as well getting past. I'm not sure if Haley hasn't gotten past Ames yet, but Ames being very kind to the drivers, leaving the battle up to them, not getting involved in any kind of way. And now 2 tenths between Wilkes and Niger down the main straight. This is going to be an opportunity. A bit of weaving there. You're only allowed one defensive move, and then depending on how kind your steward is to you, you can then resume the racing line. But anything more than that, and you are starting to get into dangerous territory. But Wilkes just trying to keep his car as wide as possible. So now Niger sat right behind him in that 3 tenths gap. And Williams is starting to find a bit of pace in his cars yet again. So he was a bit closer a few turns back. Now a second between himself and Niger. So he might just be keeping his distance a little bit to keep that clean air in front of him. And we've got 6.5 minutes left of this race. So things are going to get quite tight towards the end. Only, I'd say 6-7 laps left in the race itself. So Niger going towards the outside of Wilkes. Wilkes defending very heavily on the inside, but now squeezing Niger towards the outside. Niger getting a little bit ahead in the braking zone. They're going to be side by side into turn 1. Now, as the corner tightens, there Wilkes gets the better line, but they still haven't cleared one another. So side by side into the left-hander, and now things are looking very good for Nygaard as he gets the overtake done on Wilkes. Runs very wide as they go into the right-hander, and Williams getting past Wilkes. That happened very quickly. So Wilkes losing out a bit on one of his exits, and you can see that car a bit shocked at what just happened in the space of 2 corners as Williams regains second position, and unfortunately for Wilkes, dropping down 2 positions, that's going to hurt quite a bit. So he's going to be giving it his absolute all down the main straight. 1.5 tenths between himself and Williams. So Wilkes just absolutely gunning it. Is he going to jump out at the last second? Yes, he does. So not really early enough to get the overtake done, but Williams is going to be looking at the car in his rearview mirror. Pressure mounting. Meanwhile, Benny right behind McGregor. So McGregor is a bit out of shape. He's fallen behind his teammate Hack a bit further up the road. Now Benny very deep on the inside for turn 1. Isn't going to get the overspeed they would want. He's restricted himself into turn 1. Somehow finds the speed. Unfortunately, contact between the two of them. He is going to back out, give back that position to McGregor. He doesn't want to take the position through contact. Very, very gentlemanly racing from both drivers there. And they are going to be back at it as they go into turn number 5. So up the hill, Benny's still trying to get a hold of that inside line. He doesn't have enough of an overlap, and McGregor knows that, so takes the full racing line, able to keep the speed going, but Benny yet again pressuring on the inside. He's restricting himself quite a bit, but some good battling from both of these drivers and very respectful driving as well. Wilkes now 6 tenths behind Williams, so Nygaard is starting to gap the two of them a little bit with the second between himself and Williams. Wilkes running off the track yet again on the right-hander. Bit of a tricky one for him. Now Hack on the rear of Blackwell, and he is trying to see what he can get done here. 3 tenths, well, 4 tenths between the two drivers, so definitely in the correct area to be piling on the pressure. 3.5 minutes left on the race. If he wants to get something done, he needs to do it right now. And very, very reserved into the braking zone for the chicane. But of course, that's not what you really want to do if you can get the overspeed onto the main straight. But that gap is only opening up, so very good exit there for Blackwell. The draft coming into play there for McGregor, sorry, for Hack as they go down the main straight. Meanwhile, out in front, 1.5 seconds aloft of the rest of the field. Nygaard is doing just an absolute superb job with the track this evening. Williams right behind him is able to gap Wilkes a little bit, so the front of the pack is spreading out, and that is counting in the favor of Nygaard. Meanwhile, Benny on the rear of McGregor, he's smelling an opportunity here. 1.5 tenths, and they go through the right-hander, so this is in the run up to T5. We know that Benny definitely isn't a stranger to poking a nose onto the inside here. He's going to stick behind him though. Get that overspeed up the hill. Very, very good exit. A bit of a wild swing towards the inside. No harm, no foul though. And he has the inside line. Ooh, McGregor doesn't see him, turns in. And unfortunately, Benny's car being there at the apex. Bit of a rough one there for the two of them. And Benny is going to set up for another move down the main straight. They go. McGregor defensive on the inside. Benny is going to try and match him on the brakes. They are side by side. You can see Benny just slightly ahead, a bit later on the brakes. He's going to carry the speed into the corner, but that was a bit too much as he goes very wide. He recovers nicely, but by the time that he got to the apex, McGregor was there. And you can see McGregor free to take the wider lines, but Benny getting very restricted on the inside line. And Coverdale now also appearing on the horizon behind him. So Benny under pressure. We have taken the white flag, so Nygaard out in front is going to take that white flag for the last lap of racing. It's been a very good race for him, and 2.5 seconds between himself and Williams. Wilkes also settling into his position for third. deciding to run a bit more of a conservative race. He's been pushing that car very hard. He now wants to keep a hold of his current position. Meanwhile, Benny getting ahead of McGregor while we were looking at the lead cars. So he's moving up a few positions. And then massive battle between Haley and Bridson for fourth position as we near the end of the race. So Niger... Oh no, that's not how you want to end the chicane. So that is going to be Williams getting past him, Wilkes getting past him. Is Haley going to be able to get past? He is a bit further down the field. That is a surprise podium for, well, it was a podium, but a surprise win for Williams. Definitely did well to keep himself in position. Second position, Wilkes. Niger barely coming across in third position. Haley just losing out there on a podium. Britton fifth. Blackwell in sixth, Hack behind him in seventh, and Benny under pressure here from McGregor in the last few corners. Coverdale also in on the party, so it is going to be a dash for the finish. Benny going towards the inside, almost side by side, but he is going to take 8th position. McGregor 9th, Coverdale 10th, and Wagner going to come across the line in 11th place. And then we've got Ames, Rowe, Allen, Walker, and the other Wilkes, so Darren Wilkes, rounding out the field at the back. Very, very interesting end there to the race, Steve. I heard your reaction over the commentating booth, but what do you think about those?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what touring car racing is all about, isn't it? It was some fantastic racing from all involved. There was a lot of door rubbing, a lot of door banging, but that's, I think people were giving as good as they got, shall we say. And it was interesting, and it was fast, it was action-packed, and nobody seemed to be very safe out at the front either, did they? There were some really good battles from the front to the back. Absolutely awesome. Yeah, what a way to open up a new season. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I mean, the quality of racing was just absolutely superb. Very respectful racing between all the drivers. I know they can go to the stewards afterwards, and there will probably be some cases of it, but a lot of drivers recognizing their mistakes, actually yielding back the position. So it's always nice to see, even with such close racing like touring cars. I mean, it is the contact sport of the racing world. The drivers still being very respectful. So it was amazing to see all of that unfolding on the field.
Yeah, well, we have got a driver for an interview. I think maybe I'll hand it back over to you, Johan, and I'll bring Stephen Haley in for a quick chat and see. Let's get his thoughts on the first two races tonight.
And yeah, welcome to the booth, Stephen, and congratulations on the last race P4 finish. I must say though, when you saw, did you see some of the drivers dropping back a few positions in that last lap, and what was going through your mind as you saw Niger just on the horizon?
There were some chats going on in the chat room, so I kind of knew that something had happened. And then when I saw Mattis's car kind of slowing down, or I was catching Mattis, should I say, towards the end, and I thought, well, it could be P3, but they just were, he just didn't lose enough time for it. But steering is a little bit more pronounced, I feel, but still getting used to the car. But just got more seat time, I think, and we'll see how it goes. But I mean, happy enough with the pace, but I just couldn't keep up with the top three. Every time they were battling and I closed up a little bit, they tend to fan out a touch and then they just started to pull away. So not a massive fan of that track, to be fair. I just didn't feel I got a really good rhythm, to be honest, but yeah, it is what it is.
And then any supporters that are keeping an eye on you, they want to send a shout out for, or any organizations supporting you?
Probably Charlotte, my wife, who's hopefully watching, and the kids haven't commandeered the TV, and anybody else supporting Digital Motor Art Racing Team.
Awesome stuff. And then thank you so much for your time, Stephen. And then some other drivers that also saw quite a bit of action at the end of the race. So we'll kind of take the first driver on the scene. Mattis, welcome to the commentating booth, and I must say, stellar performance for the evening, and a bit of a pity about that last chicane. But just how did the evening go for you? And then what were your thoughts going into that chicane when you felt the car just losing a bit of control?
Good evening, guys. Thank you. Yeah, I had a good first race. It was clean. It was, I think, was the second one. He was keeping up with me, and I had a bit of problems to lose him, but I managed it at the end. And yeah, the second race, it was nice battling all the race from the start till the end. But yeah, it was unfortunate in the end. I think when he go out of the line, I think he stay outside, but then he managed to go back, and yeah, it happened. It is what it is, but third place is also good, so it's nice.
But still, a very good recovery, and I mean, you were just absolutely flying on track tonight. So definitely some good driving, and just absolute amazing watching you go about your work on track. From your side, any people supporting you that you want to send a shout out for? Any organizations supporting your racing?
Yeah, my son, he's 2 years old. Maybe he worked from other team because he want to steal my water and something. He made some.
Exactly how you wanted it to be, but you looked very competitive as you were battling with Williams.
Yeah, hello, good evening all. Yeah, I mean, that was a big surprise to me. I didn't do any practice until the practice session before the race, and I thought I was going to be mid-pack at best, and then all of a sudden in qualifying, I put in a low 58, and I was right up there. Yeah, race 2, I thought sort of it was all falling into place. I got into the lead, and then sort of when Mattis got into second place, my front tires just fell away. I had mega understeer. I couldn't, just couldn't keep up the pace. I didn't even realise that Mattis had made a mistake and dropped to third. Did he?
That happened so quickly. I think everyone's still trying to process what happened there.
Yeah, I completely unaware because I made my own mistake into the last chicane, so I thought that was it for myself. So I'm over the moon with 2 podiums. So
yeah, no, that's definitely well done. And then a question that I actually wanted to ask one of you drivers: have you driven the Lime Rock layout, or like the normal Grand Prix layout for Lime Rock before, or was it your first time at Lime Rock, and then this was kind of your introduction to Lime Rock?
it's my first time doing this layout. I did a MX5 league with SSRi at Lime Rock, but that was a different layout. That was going through the first chicane. So yeah, I've not actually done many laps here at all.
And it was a bit different to have your chicane kind of after the crest, after the straight you've got there. Was it a bit different to slow down that late in the lap, as opposed to getting the chicane that you go up the hill for next to turn 5?
Yeah, definitely, it's completely different. I mean, the first lap I did, it completely caught me out. Didn't know where to brake, and you have to slow down a lot more than you first realise. So yeah, it's a very different approach.
Definitely agree. And then from your side, just kind of battling on track, because I mean you were really pressuring Williams at a certain point. What was the track like for you, having to battle that closely for that long?
It's difficult to follow someone that closely. I don't know if you noticed, a couple of sections I'd have to back off. Like I couldn't get too close into the chicane because that's very easy to cut the corners and get a slow down. I think the only real overtaking opportunity is to get a really good run out of the last corner. So which is pretty much why I got past winning.
But thank you so much for your time, Simon, and
I think we'd very much like to have you back because that was an awesome display of commentary, and it really complemented some great racing on track, so thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and normally for me, commentating is just getting that front row seat to the best action on track. Um, Also, a stellar performance from you, Steve, on the cameras. Definitely, definitely a lot of action to keep track of. So, not the easiest job in the world, and you did it absolutely perfectly. But yeah, thank you for having me, and hope you all have a lovely evening. It's been very, very, very fun watching you guys race.
Let's just point out where we're actually going, Jan, before we forget quickly. We've just got the calendar on screen.
Oh, I do apologize for that. So, this is the one piece of information that I didn't have in front of me at the start, but I do see some tracks that I absolutely love. So, we just did the Lime Rock West Bend, and as you saw, fairly good racing. But some of the tracks that are coming up are really, really good. So, we've got Okayama, the full track, on the 1st of May. That's going to be an absolute must-watch. Okayama, of course, one of my personal favorites, but it's going to be extremely fun in these cars. And then we've got the Silverstone 2008 International layout. Touring cars, they are always a joy to watch as well, so definitely check that out on the 15th of May. Then one of the paid tracks that we are visiting, Silverstone, of course, also being paid for the legacy track, but one of the current paid track, fully paid tracks, is going to be Knockhill. That is still going to be absolutely worth the investment and worth the watch. Of course, one of the smaller Scottish tracks, very good for the touring car racing. And then Oulton Park, the Foster's layout, that's going to be happening on June the 12th. And then we finish off with Brands Hatch, also an iconic touring car track that will be happening for round 6 on June the 26th. So yeah, lots of racing left in the season, lots of exciting racing. Steve, if people want to get involved or with the community, where can they get involved?
If they're watching this video, if they just go to the description, there is a link to our Discord channel. If you click that link, join the community. You just have a couple of simple steps, just agree to the community rules, and you will get access to the rest of the Discord server. You can choose which sims you're interested in. If you click on iRacing, that will open up the iRacing lobbies for you, and you can sign up and we can see you on track. We don't close sign up for these races, so even if it's the final round of the season, you are welcome to join. We are building the iRacing community. It is growing very well, and I'm sure if you've watched the racing tonight, you will agree there's some very, very competitive racing at whatever level you are. There is somebody to race with on track. The community is very open, very friendly, so click that link if you want to get involved, and hopefully we'll see you on track and maybe have you in the commentary box for an interview when you make the podium.
Yeah, that's always the fun part. If you do well in the races, just getting your time in the limelight is always good. So definitely do come and join us in the commentary booth if you have a result that you're very proud of. So yeah, I think that might be the last few things. So from myself, Johan, and Steve in the broadcasting booth, thank you so much for joining us. Do check out any of the planned races that we're doing further down the season, and we look forward to seeing you back on track and back in the YouTube chat. Thank you so much, and hope you have a lovely evening.